بلدي بلد كثير الخيرات فيه كل ثروات الزراعية والحيوانية والمعادن فكيف أكون جعان وكيف أكون عاريان وكيف أكون مرضان بدون دواء في بلدي الغنية.
10 states, 3 administrative areas. South Sudan. Welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Angok. This week on Fixing South Sudan, pressure grows on the Dinka cattle headers to return to Jonglei following recent skirmishes with armed youth in Magui County, Eastern Equatorial State. With us in the program is Dr. Angok, the chairman of Bor County Community Association. He will speak about what has been going on and what are the solutions. Sir, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Madingor.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine.
So what is the situation? We have been hearing a lot. We don't know what is the truth and what is fiction. What is going on in Eastern Equatoria with regard to the cattle headers and the armed presumably host community youth?
Yes, Madingor, what has happened is really a tragedy to the people of South Sudan, and particularly the cattle headers of Jonglei in Eastern Equatoria and Central Equatoria. You know, the migration or displacement of cows in Jonglei State has happened several times, either due to insecurity, and this is started in 1991, and there was a split among the ranks of revolutionaries of SPLA, SPLM. So that led to devastation of areas of Bor, and many cattle were driven to Equatoria. After CPA, we managed actually to repatriate most of the cattle headers with their cattle to Bor. But they were faced with the issue of East Coast fever, which led actually to loss of so many cows, and relatively areas of north of Juba, and areas of Mongala, Terekeka were better. And many cows migrated to that area. And then later on, with the problems of 2013 and 2016, migration also happened. But recently, the area was really affected by floods. And more than 3/4 of the estate were actually submerged underwater. So these cows, they came to Eastern Equatoria and Central Equatoria. But of recently, after the order of the president that all the cattle should be repatriated back, Bor County community met in December, and the priority was actually how we can convince the cattle headers so that they go back to Jonglei and particularly Bor area. It was in compliance with the order, and we felt that the smooth transition and repatriation will be taking place, and it has actually started taking place.
And before it is taking place, there have been repeated clashes. What is fueling the clashes? They are presumed to be between farmers and cattle herders. Is that the dichotomy?
Well, there are so many stories. The versions of cattle headers, of course, when the crisis happened, the bulk of the cows were already around Bilnyang towards Mangala, when 28th of February. About 6 cattle camps were the ones who were left behind on eastern bank. And 3 of them went actually to the areas of Magui. And we're actually having dialogue, convincing them that they should come back. And particularly when the authorities of Eastern Equatoria start talking about the influx of cows to Eastern Equatoria. And it was good from the governor of Eastern Equatoria to visit some of these cattle camps to urge them that there is a need for them to be leaving the area. And that urge was answered and people start moving. Unfortunately, attack happened. And that attack lost actually to many lives, and particularly among the children and women.
When you said the attack happened, who did what?
If you take the version of the cattle headers, they were attacked. And this is why the casualties actually were women and children. 30 of people who died, 17 children, and 5 women, and 8 men. So
this is in Aru Junction.
Yes, and this is where of course there will no child of 8 months, 5 years, 4 years who have actually perished in this incident, who will be attacking the farmers. So you could just read who attacked who. But we are not going into that. The president of the
cattle... There has been a retaliation.
Okay, yes, there has been...
The talk is that the cattle keepers have been committing atrocities around Magui area.
Well, that is a version, because if you bring 2 people to talk about it, there will be so many different versions about the retaliation. But about the attack itself is a tragedy. And we are not saying that, okay, why should people be attacked? Because you have gone to somebody's home and you don't want you there. You have to leave. And this is what we have been urging our people, that there is a need for them to repatriate. Because if you go to somebody's land and that somebody is not friendly, there is no way you have to stay there.
These issues have been pestering for a long time, going back to the CPA era. And there's often a feeling that the cattle herders, they move wantonly without respect, they don't consult, they destroy farms, no accountability. Those are some of the issues. There's a lot of suspicion.
Yes, I do agree. If you are a cattle owner and you are going to somebody's place, you need to consult, you need to take permission, and you need to have ground rules for your cattle to be there. But if there is no any understanding between the cattle owners and farmers, then automatically there will be problems. Normally, in certain circumstances, it's not in South Sudan alone, the movement of cattle is regulated. It's regulated by law, and it is not left for the farmers and cattle owners to do it, because there will always be some misunderstanding if they are allowed to do it for themselves. So it is a tragedy which we don't want to happen in South Sudan, and we are urging them that you leave the area. Since the population has grown impatient about your presence, you have to leave. And that's what we are telling our people. Leave the area and go back.
Part of the impatience has to do with the fact that people are talking over each other rather than to each other. What is your response to that, that your community is not engaging the other side?
You see, normally, traditionally, the owner of the cattle, even within the Dinka setup, if you move to a different location, you must first consult with the locals who will accept your presence.
Is that happening?
If that is not happening,
there are no regular channels for communication. Yes. Why don't we take a break from that? Welcome back to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Adingor. With us in the program, is Dr. Angok Gordon Kwal, Chairman of Bor County Association. We are speaking about the movement of cattle from Equatoria to Jonglei State. Is it practical? What steps have they taken? Before we talk about the steps, do you feel that the whole issue is unnecessarily politicized?
Yes, very much politicized. And we as a community, we decided to be silent about whatever is happening because we felt it's taking dimension of politics rather than to be resolved as a community problem. Because in the beginning, the information we heard from the cattle herders themselves, that they were attacked by rebels. That's what they said. And we asked them, why do you think they are rebels? They said the people who attacked them are actually of the multi-linguistic group, organized. So they felt there are two bodies who can organize an army. It is either the government or the rebels. But they felt these must be rebels. Because normally government will come and tell them, you move. Go away, I don't want you here. But they felt the rebel attacks them, not the government, because these are organized group. And they were heavy armed also. That's what they said. But later on when we heard that the denial from the rebels, and also the government of Eastern Equatoria shifted in and said that these are not rebels. So the feeling was, okay, maybe it is the government of Eastern Equatoria to tell us exactly who then attacked these people. You see? And then later on we heard the version that these are farmers who armed themselves. Of course it's a tragedy because we don't want people of South Sudan to be killing one another.
What would you say is responsible for the politicization of a humanitarian issue?
It has been a culture. Today, the people who are talking, they are talking about the cattle headers. We are sure, we are asking these people to get back to Jonglei State. Tomorrow will be no longer about cattle, but will still be another issue. The history tells us in 80s, there were issues of people of different regions to go away from Equatoria. There were no cattle there. But now it is cattle. Once cattle leave this place, there will be another issue.
There are many underlying issues stemming back or going back to the liberation struggle. There are feelings of hurt and misperception that certain people are occupiers.
You see, cattle can roam Africa. They come from West Africa up to Western Equatoria. They are roaming. They come seasonally, they go. Because they know that this is not their country. But we are telling the cattle headers from Jonglei that you can come to Equatoria seasonally with agreement and regulations and get back. Without you touching any property, without you destroying farms. We don't want that to happen. Because even in Jonglei itself, if you destroy somebody's farm, you will be held accountable. You have to pay fines. If they are not doing it here, then it is better we ask these people, they get back to Jonglei till that time when there are proper regulation, which will handle the relation between the farmers and headers.
Let me talk about what I have witnessed firsthand, because I have gone to some of these cattle camps and I have interviewed the cattle herders and also the members of the host communities. And for the cattle herders, they are talking about push factors such as the cattle disease that you mentioned, insecurity, and most recently, the floods. On the other end, they are talking about the livelihoods being destroyed, the farms, and even how the cattle herders coming around the area causing some kind of insecurity. And the fact that there has been no dialogue. Those are the issues. When we talk about the push factors that got these people out in the first place, they are still unaddressed. So how are you hoping to convince the cattle herders that they must go back?
Yeah, for the sake of peace in the country, if somebody is not comfortable because you are a neighbor and is not ready to host you, what do you do? Do you insist? You don't insist. This is why we're asking that you people try to get back, at least to give a chance for a new era of dialogue and even talking to one another. Because under this tension, there will be always bloodshed, which we don't want that to happen. Enough is enough for people of South Sudan. If the host community are not comfortable, we'll urge the cattle herders, please leave the area. South Sudan is vast, and you can shift to another area, but with a better understanding.
What mechanism are you going to use? Because repeatedly, these cattle herders have been refusing to go to where they think their cows are going to just be sacrificed. And there's a crisis of constitutionalism here. Some of them who have been sort of educated on the Constitution, they say the Constitution allows for free movement everywhere. And yet, there's a political crisis that you have to solve. They have to go back to jungle. What mechanism are you going to use to get them?
We as the people, we are using one thing only. You always try to give room for talk and negotiation. And if somebody asks you to leave his home, then you say, no, I'm not going away because it is a right as a citizen to stay here. You are not solving a problem. You better move. Said, okay, this is your house. I'm stepping out. And when you are outside, but you will say, now, brother, you pushed me into rain, for instance, it's raining. Or there's a situation here which I cannot. Then now is a chance to give them a chance that because you have respected him as person, you stepped out. But now you are asking. That's what we want from our people.
Are you saying it is absolutely imperative that they must leave?
They must leave.
Not negotiable?
Not negotiable.
Let's leave it from there and then we'll come back to it shortly. The chairman of the South Sudan Elections Commission were speaking about the road to 2023. Will there be elections or not? What do you say to that? The question is yes or no. This is Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. I am Angok, and with us is Dr. Angok Gordon Kwal, Chairman, Bor County Community Association, and we are speaking about the recent clashes between the cattle herders of Jonglei State and the armed youth from Eastern Equatoria. Where do we go from now? The cattle herders must move. The rainy season has not yet set out, and what is the mechanism that they are going to use? Part of the attraction that needs to happen is to address the push factors, and you convert them into pull factors so that they are attracted, whether there's better pasture, there's less insecurity, as in the past. You are going to literally force them out. But how are you going to be able to do that? In the past, there was certain commander that would be organized to drive the cattle herders out in an orderly fashion, also with the pressure of the attacks. How are you going to achieve what you are looking for?
In December last year, we met that there's a need for repatriation of our displaced people, wherever they are. And it should be in phases. Now we did not anticipate that cattle will be attacked. So this has upset our plan because they have already started moving slowly. And most of the cattle camp right now are actually north of Juba. Only few are left, particularly in the eastern bank. Others are in the western bank, almost nearly to Kaya and Morobo. And others are towards Lanya. This group are the one which we thought they will have a bit of problem. But the one in Eastern Bank, we thought that they are starting moving. And if you drive through this road to Mangala, you really get cattle in big numbers there. So they have already started moving. We already started providing vaccines. We thought we will start actually vaccination by April. That's what we thought. And this will encourage people to come and vaccinate their cattle. The other thing is the issue of insecurity. You cannot leave an area because of insecurity and then you cause also insecurity for others. It's not acceptable. The issue of insecurity in the area, not because of there is really insecurity, but because the population is not there. So the bandits actually are taking advantage of people are not there, young men are not there, they are taking advantage. So as young men, they should come back. So the issue of security will be addressed in their presence. The issue of disease, this is why actually we have also come up with some businessmen to provide vaccines, and then the vaccination should start. The other thing is, it is not necessary for us to cause anxiety for others. It is unfair. As South Sudanese, we want everybody to live in harmony. We need our brothers who are farmers also to live in harmony. But the situation which is happening now, the last attack, hundreds of cattle were shot dead. People died. So it's not addressing the issue. The farmers are fearing their products are destroyed by cows, and also the herders also have their cows are being shot. So where are we heading to? It is better we ask them, although it is a constitutional right, yes, but a constitutional right does not give you right also to abuse the right of others.
Let's talk about
so if they think that they are abusing right of others, we ask them, can we step back a bit? Then we wait for a better way of approaching these issues.
A better way of approaching the issues on achieving harmony. In this program, we speak of fixing South Sudan. And South Sudan is a liberated country where many of its citizens sacrifice for the nationhood. And yet, we are taking shortcuts to tell South Sudanese to go back to their own areas. How do we now go at nation building? What is the best mechanism to ensure that South Sudanese, instead of getting tired of each other, they have to talk to each other so that they get along?
Yes.
Isn't it a mistake to say, let's just get these cattle herders to go back to their home areas rather than making sure that there is intervention?
If there is a misunderstanding, even in your own house, there is the white man called separation. There is misunderstanding between cattle herders and farmers. Can we not separate them for a while? So that you give room for a better thinking or deeper thinking of analyzing the situation. Rather than you stick to your gun, farmers stick to their guns, herders stick to it, where will it lead us to? I know challenges of South Sudan maybe your program will fix them in few minutes. But in reality, it needs all of us to have that heart of believing that we are one. 2, forgiveness will be there. 3, can we as local people resolve our problem rather than waiting authorities who will come later on, and we know that authorities have their own challenges in the whole country. That is the situation we are in. The crisis of South Sudan, it is difficult to pinpoint where is the problem exactly.
But it will be,
Because in crisis,
there will be understanding
Yes,
at the end
yes,
of the day.
yes.
When rule of law,
yeah, in crisis, whatever we think of is correct. But maybe one thing will work only. And one thing which will work is for us actually to see into it that we are living in peace, seeking peaceful way of addressing our issues, rather than fighting or politicizing issues.
in this case, the movement has to happen for peace to prevail. When is the deadline for the cattle herders to leave Equatoria in general?
We have not put the deadline. As I told you that they are now in 4 groups. There's group who are left in Numili. These are cattle herders. They were not involved in Magui issues. There are one around Kaya and Morobo. They were not involved. The group, yes. But we have to take the first who have actual problem, who have misunderstanding. They are going to
Where
Jonglei.
in Jonglei with the flooded, with the floods haven't been a big or a common phenomenon.
Yes, Jonglei is not all underwater. There are some higher grounds.
They have to go to dry areas.
Yes.
Why don't I thank you for coming to this program?
Thank you very much for doing more. And by saying so, we maybe, if we open our heart and our mind, we can fix South Sudan.
Thank you very much.
Rather than us sticking, for me as a cattle owner, I will want my cattle to graze well, because that is my wealth. Okay? But if I cannot grow my wealth there, why should I insist to be there?
There's no South Sudan.
There's no South Sudan.
Thank you, sir.
So I have to take it where I can grow my wealth actually.
Thanks for coming.
الذي بلد كثير الخيرات فيه كل ثروات الزراعية والحيوانية والمعادن فكيف أكون جعان وكيف أكون عاريان وكيف أكون مرضان بدون دواء في بلدي الغنية